Okay, welcome back. Okay, so all of this is like almost like a test for us, because the people that find this the hardest are obviously the social scientists that have bought the methods of hard science. Okay, and they're the worst. They're like the hardest time for this. Hard scientists might go, yeah, okay, this makes sense. And I've read a couple of articles. Velleman's comes to mind, and there's another guy. Again, it's in the article. Actually, I don't think I've included it in there. Velleman's and there's another guy, right? And they talk about intersubjectivity, and you can tell it's written by a scientist. Basically, it's just pointing out the fact that the method of what I'm just describing is very, very similar to science. It is very, very similar. However, it's more to do with a thing called social ontology rather than physical ontology. But the basic emphasis, if you try this, this is the result. It's a bit like that. But the variability is, you read this, you might come up with different ideas. That's fine. You might have different experiences. That's fine. Okay. The trick is, however, we're trying to write the sentence and another sentence in order to get to a certain higher level of understanding. It's not about analysing and breaking it down, which is again analysis, breaking it down, disproving. Analysis complies quite well with the method of objective science, and not for people. All right, definitely for like things like bridges and stuff. And so you have the maths to build this bridge, and if the bridge falls down, people are going to die. So you definitely want to, somebody says, this is how we're going to build the bridge, this is the maths, this is what we're going to build it with. Somebody else comes along, I'm going to check, I'm going to analyse absolutely everything you're doing here. I'm going to check that this actually is going to withstand the amount of forces that's going to go over that bridge. Okay, that's fine. For physical objects, that is fine, and I would say necessary. But with us and human beings, it's not working. It's not working. These scientists have proven that their environmental degradation is happening, and yet all their evidence means diddly squat in the face of governmental and political, economic companies and their whatever it is that they're trying to produce and manufacture, and it's not built into the structure. The structure, eco-political structures, are not capable of dealing with the level of degradation that's occurring, even when they're actually witnessing the evidence. Okay. And although we're going into making electric cars, I'm not convinced that this is going to resolve the issue. Okay? Of course it's not. Right. So we have to approach this differently. It means our method for approaching this has to change academically. Okay? Because the political economic stuff, that's this side. That's all just that's us yapping and talking about each other. It's not about bridges. Okay? We might think that companies are things. They're not. They're just collections of people. It's just psychosocial, right? And the way to appreciate psychosocial is we should be doing it reflexively. We need methods in this space, not this space. We don't need methods in this space to try and work out, analyse, and work out if the bridge is going to work. No, we're not even interested in this that much. We're interested in this. Okay, how do we sort ourselves out? So the evidence of a social science that works is that social scientists actually pay attention to each other really well. And when we're sharing articles, we're not doing some poxy little thing to do with a citation because it's related to some kind of objective number to do with who gets the number of citations and which organizations and companies, not what they're called, journals, and so no, it's to do with the fact that people read it and went, this is amazing, I think this is correct, this makes sense to me, this confirms whatever it is that I'm interested in and that I've verified in my own experience that I'm attempting to move forwards with, whatever it is, right? You see? So it's not a citation number. And that's why we have Sqale, because it's to do with the number of people that are looking at something and going, I think this is really good. We have subjective enumeration, and we have, second order analysis of, those kinds of numbers, not epoxy citation number, right? So, so this thing is related to maths as well. Okay, so there are ways of doing mathematics on this side, which we'll talk about a bit later. Right, slightly different direction then. Let's go in a slightly different direction. Let's carry on with this text and go to this to indicate the potential power of this. In fact, it might actually be quite clear. How this got into your hands. How did this video get into your hands? How did any of the text get into your hands? And that's to do with the fact that somebody's read it. In the traditional mechanical machinery method, tech thickness, it's because I put in a search, you put in a search, and then you get these articles, and then you go through the articles, and then you have to go to the abstracts, and then you read it. All that's happening. Okay, That's quite, so it got into my hands through a very thick technical process, which is pretty dense, okay, and not particularly very useful. But AI is coming, and that's meant to be trying to clarify that. But currently, right now, 2020, I'm telling you, it's a fiasco. Over emphasis of information and not enough machine learning to actually assist in that filtering process on the machine side. Okay, we actually have to sit there and manually filter through that by reading it all. It's absurd. I mean, it's completely absurd. We don't need that. We don't need that. So when it says how this got into your hands, we're saying if we're following it this way, if we're reading it in this way, then there's a responsibility. Because it's relational, you know, Wendy and me, I'm doing this because of my relation with Wendy. The reason why I'm doing all this and putting myself through hell trying to engage people in university and PhDs is because I had a bunch of kids. I'm responsible to what we experienced. They could take it forward, but they were only kids. I was an adult when I experienced this, and I witnessed their behaviours that were phenomenal and seemed to disprove what everybody else is talking about. Okay, we're talking about inner city, London schools, with kids that were like literally, when I went into a classroom, hanging from the rafters. You know, the kids that were just not happy about being in the maths class, not happy about having a supply teacher, but actually pretty happy about the fact that the other teacher had gone, and not happy about being in school. I mean, you know, there was quite a lot of grief going on, and you turn up and you're like, oh, I'm going to teach you some maths. Okay, now I have to get this right. I mean, there was no excuse, and I did, but and I was inspired. I was inspired by how kids responded. Okay, and I have to honour that. And however difficult it is for me to return back to the institution and say, I did social anthropology, and you know, I'm interested in maths, and I have to say, these kids are amazing. Okay, and I can see all the pathologies. I understand, and I can understand the solutions for all the pathologies. I can understand that, but I think we're approaching it in the wrong way. But if we approach it this way, as Schotter's suggesting, and we're empowered by theories like Bhaskar, I think we can get there. So, but we also have to be empowered in alternative organizational way. So we're not constrained by the organizational complexity, which is the machinery of how we get articles in our hands. Okay, I'm very thankful that I got Roth's article and Schotter. Schotter actually I got through Wendy. Wendy gave me the book, even before I did the PhD. And then later, at the end of my reading, I went, wait a minute, Schotter. I found Schotter, and I was like, Schotter, wait a minute, Wendy gave me that. Oh yeah, brilliant, okay. But Roth came through the search method, you know, ant walk through academia. Oh my gosh, Roth is fantastic, correspondence theory. So it does work, it's just very inefficient. How this got into your hands, okay, how this got into your hands. For you to be sharing this hermeneutic moment, for us to be actually reading this at the moment that we're reading it right now, okay, is dependent on the mechanism of sharing. So I'm talking about the mechanism of sharing. A higher quality of hermeneutic moment between readers, okay, that was implicit with the, between readers is achievable through personal recommendation. This is phenomenal. Not search, not algorithms, personal recommendation. Such organic sharing, I invented that term, means your reading of this is dependent on previous readers. Dependence. I think this is related to interdependence. So you can only read this article if somebody gave it to you. The only people that read this have been my supervisors and the reviewers. They did not share it forwards, I'm sure. That's it. There will be a limited number of readers, and they didn't even read this. Some of them looked at this and went, I don't understand this, don't understand the point of this, and the others went, I have no problems with this at all. And then I've tried to ask them, can we go through it? They won't do it. Don't know why, they just don't want to do it. Okay. What I'm doing with you, they don't want to do it. The people that are meant to be engaging me, and then they accuse me of not listening to them, they don't even want to read this, okay, with me. I don't understand. There's something very difficult about this, the academics. And if you're an academic, I apologise. And if you go back to this article, you read an apology to start with, and there is a heartfelt apology for the level of challenge this brings. I haven't, in my engagement regarding this, I haven't actually had that I haven't adopted that attitude because I want to show how easy and simple it is. Okay, so such organic sharing means your reading of this is dependent on previous readers. Similarly, there are readers in the future. There are viewers in the future. Because of your action of personal sharing, and they are now present in this self-similar hermeneutic moment. Organic sharing generates the economic of interdependence. That's amazing. I see how I read. I don't read that going, oh, I remember writing this. No, I do not. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense to me. So for this, if that's the number of people that have got to this sentence, and 12, and then somebody else basically shares it in the real world. Here's the difference. That's why it's a different thing. This person gives it, and I'm going to suggest with Sqale, with money, 10 whatever, 10, equivalent 10p, doesn't matter, right? And a new person, this should all be green, this is all this side, green, right? This person has given it to that person. That person's reading it, and at this moment, oh, okay? This is the second social fact. Number 4 is basically saying, okay, I can't even verbalize that very well. It's all of the people in the past and the future relative to each one of us. Right now, I'm the only person. Wendy hasn't even seen this. Okay, so there's only one writer, only one talker. Okay, when Wendy sees it, great, Wendy will be there. Like, Wendy, and then she'll go, wait, I'm over here. Yes, you are, because there are other people that Wendy may have shared with. Okay, so can't imagine. Maybe Gail Simon, maybe. And if Gail's looking at this, Gail's like, thank you very much, Wendy, but no thank you. Or like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, I'm following. Is this a useful way for systemic inquiry to go forward? Maybe it is. Maybe it could be powerful. Maybe that's Wendy and that's Gail. The point is, at this moment right now, chronologically, this is just imaginary, all right? But and from my position, I have to talk in probabilities. But in the reality, where on your side, where you, and you are, whoever you are, not Wendy, but whoever you are, is looking at this. There's no probability involved. You're looking at this. It's a fact. And so in my reality, it's a probability. In your reality, it's a fact. And the reason why it's a fact is because of Wendy's action, who, in my sense, is also a probability. But that's the problem if we fix it back to the authority of the writer. But the writer is in the past. Okay? Same with me. I'm in the past. So the authority cannot be mine. The authority has to be yours. Okay? The power of the moment is in the living person. So your action of sharing it is essential. Not algorithms, not search, and not increasing this ridiculous tech thing. No, you simply go, I think there's something in this which is actually valuable, and I think it's valuable enough that I'm going to share it with another person. Or, I don't actually know if this is valuable. I'm going to share it anyway, just to check to see if somebody else thinks it's valuable. Or, I actually don't think this is valuable, but I'll pass it on to somebody that kind of talks like this, and hopefully they'll think it's valuable. But cut me out of any more. I don't want any more of this because it boggles my brain. All right. So what we're suggesting, like the hermeneutic moment, going through a sentence, there's a hermeneutic moment occurring socially at our interaction level between us. Okay, when we share this. So that thing there is this person giving to that person. 10. So have a look at this because I think it's good, or I don't understand it, or I actually don't think it's good, but I think you might like it. All right, and that creates this. Now that's a completely different thing than a khaki citation number. Just that, our momenting relating to, okay, I'm going to share that. That thing is from any person to any other person at any part of the process of this. Like this moment. It hasn't been as clear to me as that. It's a little bit tricky. I don't know if you can kind of catch that. Can you catch that? Or is this quite simple? or is this quite tricky? Right. And that's what creates our independence. But it's a completely different level. It's a completely different level. It's not to do with just a reflexive understanding of the text. That's 1, 2. Involving the writer, that's 3. Involving everybody else, the readers, that's 4. But in order for that fourth one to occur and have this increase number 1 and 2 and 3, it has to be shared. 4 implies the sharing, and I think organic sharing. I think the footnote probably says, so share this. You know? So, and it's almost like a moral, in the same way that, for example, you read, oh, I disagree. If you disagree, that's fine. However, you can't kind of carry on following whatever it is the other person's saying to get to the point of whatever they're trying to say. And they're not trying to draw a conclusion and prove anything to you. They're just trying to share some thought that requires a little bit of writing. Like, oh, I think, oh yes, this is what they're talking about. In my, I can affirm that. Okay, and I can confirm that. In the content. Okay? But similarly, if you say no, here's the thing. If you say no and just cut out, I disagree, I'm not going to follow that, or conclusion, I disagree. Okay? If you do that almost like prematurely, it means that you're stopping it from happening. In the same way, if you don't share, it stops other people from experiencing this to go and making up their own mind. So the default status for reflexive reading is give it a go. You know, read it as the page is blank. Just let it see what happens. Okay, and that's similarly share it. The default status is share it. Okay, and I write a whole section at the end of this to do with problems to do with the ethical praxis. It seems to follow from it, and have a look at that. It's kind of interesting. I'm not going to go into detail now, but that's the second social fact. We can talk about that in more detail. And the fifth one, okay, let's go on to the fifth one, right. As you may experience this, so may all readers. Okay, so it's basically reinforcing before. Is there anything new here? Those who verify this hermeneutic moment of all readers, okay, constitute a readership which we may appreciate as collective agency. Number 4 is that relationship of organic sharing. The collective of the past and the future. That's a bit mind-blowing. Okay, but let's just say the people currently who have watched this, so you should be able to verify that all the people that you can see on the Sqale, the distribution graph, you can see the distribution graph of the people that have actually looked at this, and that's a live image. So this image, if I produce an image up here, that'll just be a temporary image which I've stuck on after the fact. But you can actually go on to Sqale and then look at, oh, these are all the people that have actually shared it so far. Okay, but this is either describing that, so there's a collective of people, and if the people think it's like a 10, and other people think it's 2 or 3, they won't share it probably. And so that's the readership, and that's a collective body. And if that collective body is reading a sentence like this one at this same moment, that potentially can constitute a social force. Not individually just sharing this idea, it's like a third layer, okay? It's a collective force, and that is a social ontology, because other people then interact with it. It's not personal intersubjective and interdependence, it's the effect. So if we, for example, had 1 million people watching this, okay, and that means there was money flow, and that money flow was used to support an initiative. And I haven't thought about this. Maybe I should have thought about this. Okay, of social science. Okay, this kind of social science, which we're going to call, I don't know, social subjective social science, or social system science. I don't know, something like that. Okay, and by reading this and passing it forward, so jetting revenue to follow on this kind of thinking with some paper or some video and so on and so forth, that actually has money flow. We can actually pay people. So you're listening to this, we can actually pay people to pursue these things. So, hopefully somebody shares this. Oh, I'm talking about this in my academic corner of the universe. Look, oh, wow, okay. So can you incorporate this idea of reflexive reading in it? Yeah, yeah, it's very, very close. Okay, look, it's like this now. Oh, wow, that's really powerful. Right, so we pay people. So we end up manifesting a network of power, which is not institutionally based. No hierarchy involved in this. they'll have tendency for hierarchy to occur, and we need ways to make sure that that doesn't happen. And I think it's built into this, okay? Because you have the power, not me. Okay, hierarchies tend to happen where the person's paying the money has the power, whereas what we're saying is because they're getting the money and then they're distributing the money, whereas you're distributing the money from your friend. And anyway, that's Sqale. Okay, so the whole point about Sqale, we'll talk about it another time. You can have a look at it, but basically it's a peer-to-peer system which encourages interdependence, and I don't think it manifests the level of hierarchy that we have with our current economic. Anyway, those who verify the terminated moment of all readers constitute readerships which we may appreciate as a collective agency. A couple of writers have talked about this I came across, and it's like somebody external to this kind of witnesses this as a social group, as a thing, like a university. If you have a whole bunch of people together, those were kids, but now they're like in a little hierarchy, a little structure that's like a structure, like a bridge, and so that's what our current social structures are like, and that's why people call them social ontologies. Well, this kind of body of people reading this at the moment might respond to a suggestion. So the call to action becomes more active if people realize, wow, I'm part of this thing right now with absolutely everybody looking at this, and I'm making my decision just like everybody else is. Wow. Okay. The proposed purpose of the readership of this text, reflexive reading, is to accelerate transformative praxis in social science. That's what I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to live up to that statement. To assist change in education. Transformative praxis in social science to assist change in education. This particular document is to do with trying to get some ABC state test. I've introduced the slight variation of the word test now into schools. It's not objective test, there's no right or wrong. It's to do with does it help kids improve their psychosocial state? To assist psychosocial state collectively. To assist change in education. So the practice is to improve social science. That's what I'm doing. I'm not doing this video in relation to education so much. It's really just the first one, social science. Business and industry. Okay, so it's got wider scope. And governance and global stewardship. Okay, that's a big claim. Okay, but that's what we're trying to suggest, is that there's a lot of power in this. There's a lot of power in this if we also do the sharing. If the mechanism of sharing is transparent enough and organic, person to person, just like this is, person to person. The moment, the imaginative moment, I'm listening to this, I'm reading this at the same moment that the writer is, and there's a quality to that. There should be an equality to that. It's kind of assumed, I guess. Maybe that has to be stated. But and there's an equality to my presence and everybody else's presence, including the writer, and then we're manifesting something. And this, if we start sharing it, manifests it in order to, and then to do what? And the purpose for this text is to, hopefully, the examiners go, yeah, this makes sense. Supervisors go, yeah, go ahead and do that test in the schools, ABC. They didn't. They didn't see the point of this. Okay, but this thing itself should be like, I think this is pretty good, verification. And that's what's happening in classrooms, verification. It's verification. They're verifying that we're all together in the same room. That's the corollary, it's correspondence theory, Roth, that social fact. It's not about the examiners checking whether this linguistic form is accurate, well-formed, and everything else, which is what they keep on rapping on about. It's not about whether it it captures what the kids are doing, or what they're not doing, and everything else, or theories that other people have come up with about what. I'm not interested in any of that. Okay, it's a meta method. I'm interested in how these kids engage, ABC state. I think this works for them. The trouble is these guys are still using, scientific methodologies. It's their incorrect methodologies, hence reflexive reading. Is this working, guys? Does this make sense? Can you verify this on your side? Because that ABC class is working on this side. It works with the kids socially. You guys don't have this. So, and your medium is not social engagement. Your medium is through this. So I had to develop a system that reflected on this. And, basically, it's reflexive reading. and organic sharing, actually, in order to manifest it more powerfully. And the third social fact is, what's the purpose of this? As I say, to see how the loops occur. If you start talking about it, it's easier if you just do it. Okay, so that text, when you're reading this text here, okay, is just for that purpose. Okay, ABC state. It has extensions into other things. So right now, because I'm talking about social science, if I start talking about social science, I'm saying, if fundamentally social science gets its act together and starts to manifest social power with money flow, which is not based on hierarchy, and we're using processes like reflexive reading in order to explore aspects of our reality, including kids and other people and therapy and business and how we're doing business and everything else. If this method of reflexive reading and other methods empower us to develop tools and skills implicitly within our experience to engage each other as a social science, we should demonstrate that ourselves as social science first. Okay, if you can't do it in social science, do it with other people in other industries, your groups, your friends, and so on and so forth, colleagues. Okay, social scientists might be able to catch up, but I kind of think social scientists, we can lead the way. Okay, and industry and governance. Okay, maybe people in departments start listening to each other in a slightly different way. So it's not just reflexive reading; it's reflexive engagement. It just starts getting very interesting. It starts getting very interesting. And then it says global stewardship. So potentially, we're talking about the scientists coming up with the environmental analysis and evidence to show it's degrading, but has to interact with the current political, economic bodies, that is governance bodies. And if we've manifested the third kind of like social fact, that we're manifesting power as a collective, it just purely, not purely, but it does depend on how many of us and how much money we have in what it is that we're understanding as we're going forwards. So that we can introduce not only the change, the idea, we can also introduce the change with the money flow and the people that are actually going to do it. I.e., we manifest the change ourselves. Okay, in contrast with, and potentially in collaboration with, people in structures. We are still in structures. We can still operate as this network within the structures that we're in. Okay, it's just that this mechanism means that we don't actually have to operate through those structures. We could just use the resources within our institution, like the supervisor in the university, or like somebody employed within the company, or somebody in the Department of Government, and we're using whatever resources within our social context in order to work together and collaborate together as human beings in this kind of way, sharing a moment. Does that make sense? Wow. Okay, so reflexive reading in academia, pretty powerful stuff. And I think I've just about covered it. I think I'm going to do a little diagram here just as an option for anybody who's vaguely interested in kind of like representation. That text is kind of interesting, have a look at it. I think it's quite simple. First social fact, you're reading this at the same moment as the writer and every other reader. That's basically it. In fact, look, so this can be boiled down to one statement. Here we go. We've got a sixth one. I didn't even know. Okay, but if you jump to that next one, 0, we are experiencing this text and line of thought concurrently. That's it. We, okay, are experiencing, thinking, feeling, whatever, this text, true, and line of thought. Okay, experiencing this text and line of thought, lines, lines of thought concurrently. For what purpose? Right, that's not being clear, but it's kind of conflated down. We haven't got the. That's probably it. Actually, it's basically saying that's it, because that leads to the other steps. All right, number 6. The quality of our reading experience varies. Our lines of thought may be convergent or divergent. Our attitude may be aligned or critical. Our feeling emic, I experience meaning, or etic. These are just words. Our attention, yeah, that's right, they're just words. We're just kind of reading them. It has no meaning. Our attention, or we're going in agreement, i.e. we're verifying as we go along. Our attention on abstract generalization, I tend to do that, or concrete items, that's us. Our orientation towards the future or the past, I'm generally future orientated. Overall, our experience is flowing, fluent, or constructed solid. The people who are constructed solid, they generally don't like this because we are playing around with terms and things and dissolving things, basically. Okay, that's very interesting. Okay, what came to mind was something else there actually. It's just, honestly, it was fleeting and then it just went. I talked too much and it went. I suspect you have that, and I hope you're making notes and coming up with your own thoughts and making notes of your own thoughts and returning to them, because that's really where the value is. Okay, this you can come back to. It's kind of been thought. We have to do stuff, please do, but it's to do with how do we go forwards. Right, there's two things that I'd like to do. One, talk about this little script thing, and then one other we'll grab. So we'll pause this and we'll do this last little bit for people that are need a little bit more, either the tool or a way of understanding. Okay?